polymorphous perversity is the virtue, is the crown jewel of the early Freudian thinking. The idea that total sexuality with anyone at any time, anywhere, is a good thing, is the ultimate in freedom and happiness, and that to not accept that idea or to accept... Yes.
Hi.
Hi, Judith. Thanks so much for joining
Chuck.
us. I've done all of the intros.
Everybody's moving. It's just so troublesome.
No, I understand. We're having a couple of minor glitches today. Judith Reisman is the author of Sexual Sabotage, How One Mad Scientist Unleashed a Plague of Corruption and Contagion on America. Judith, we have, of course, this latest wrinkle in the sexual revolution, the move toward polymorphous perversity in this country and in this world, and that is this television show called Skins. Can you give us some background on that?
Yeah, sure. As a matter of fact, it's very, very closely connected to the material I sent you earlier, where Senator Grassley is attempting to do something about the child pornography that's massively purchased we have 5,200 Pentagon officials who've been involved in the purchasing of child pornography. Now, that's directly interlocked with what we see all over the country, and Skins, of course, is the best example. I've heard people say, ask me, if all of the mass media is now being run by pedophiles, pederasts, and other sexual deviants, because who in the world would create a film, a television series using underage children engaged in various sorts of what they call sexually provocative activity, which includes every kind of provocative activity, some seen, some off camera, as well as drug consumption, alcohol consumption, and all of it within the framework of fun and jollies, when we know that at this point in time we're facing a epidemic of teenage venereal diseases, as well as abortion, as well as everything else under the sun. So this is a horrible set of events, and one that arguably is not only illegal in terms of child pornography, but even much more important than that, wholly and completely illegitimate, violation of everything this nation holds dear, and really things that would never have been legally permitted until very recently.
Judith, don't we still have laws on the books that make child pornography illegal? I mean, why can't, if you tell me that these many thousands of Pentagon officials are involved with child pornography, why aren't they being brought up on charges?
Well, of course, that's what Senator Grassley has been asking, and there is a YouTube interview. It certainly wasn't on the front page of the New York Times with any degree of regularity. But, yeah, you're talking about 5,200, and the data coming from Senator Grassley and from the YouTube report, which was a CNN report, was that these were all workers, Pentagon workers, who actually paid to download this stuff, who paid to purchase it and or download it. And yet, we have our detectives all over the country attempting to arrest, people who use or download child pornography. But when it's the Pentagon, the people who are in charge of our safety, who we look up to as containing terrorism, and they're hooked up in their little cubicles with this stuff? Are you kidding? And Senator Grassley is attempting to do an investigation, but what he said was that the Department of Defense has fought him at every end. I mean, he has been unable to break through, even though several other senators also demanded an explanation, and the only time that they got any response was after the television folks started asking questions and reporting it.
Well, it's troubling right then and there that our Senate, our elected representatives, can't go into a federal agency and get answers to a question. I mean, that to me should be contempt of Congress.
Oh, absolutely. Of course it should be. But, now we're talking about lobbyists and we're talking about multi-billion-dollar activities that are taking place. And big porn is a big industry. And the connection between big porn and big pharma is a very direct one. We've got 25% of our teenage girls allegedly having at least one venereal disease. We've got a massive effort by big pharma to simply vaccinate every little kitty as they cross the threshold. So, but there's certainly those over 1,300 big pharma lobbyists. They're certainly not campaigning, on the Hill to end the use of our airwaves to corrupt our kids. They're campaigning for more and more access to our kids. So it's a terrible loop, which I call the sex industrial complex, and it's very dangerous. It's dangerous for everybody, and it's ruining lives.
Judith, you've spent the past 30, 40 years investigating the connection between all of this and the Kinsey report, and Kinsey and how he was sort of the Pied Piper of all of this stuff, financed by the Rockefeller Institute, which is big oil. Apparently they're getting government subsidies, which is something we're going to be talking about in the next segment. But and being foisted on the country as a way to undermine our Judeo-Christian moral code. The results have been terrible suffering and death and destroyed lives for young people. We used to take it for granted that a moral society and a practical society protects the morality of and the innocence of young people. Now we have something going on here with the skins that is explicitly undermining those values in a way that I think is unprecedented. Not that they haven't been undermined, obviously, for the past 40 years. This is actual child porn on television with underage actors and actresses engaging in sexual activity and being viewed by underage young men and women. Who's behind this?
Where's
thing?
The Department of Justice on this, ladies and gentlemen? Where's our prosecutor? Where are our prosecutors? Our prosecutors have had their hands tied behind their backs for years. It's only been the guys down on the, with the boots on the ground, so to speak, that have been trying to catch the worst of our rapists and so forth. But if our prosecutors, if what's going on in the Pentagon, that cannot be dissimilar. Right. We know we've had these kinds of reports from the State Department. We've had these kinds of reports from Treasury, from other departments. And the United States Department of Justice, when they crushed my research back in 1984, 85, we were dealing with the same thing. We had Senator Humphrey and a couple other senators who were attempting to find out why the research was that I conducted on Playboy and Penthouse, where we found that children were being used regularly, consistently, deliberately in pornographic displays and so forth. And when we won, even, by the way, in a case where Playboy sued me in Holland for saying that they were promoting incest and child sexual abuse, even won them in Holland, for goodness sakes. Well, way back in 85, we had the same thing happen. We had senators attempting to get information from DOJ at that time, and the OJJDP, Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, they were thwarted. So I keep looking for some really solid, brave lawyers who I will eagerly work with to supply all the documentation they need to take down some of these impossibly vile people who are running our media and who are controlling our children's lives.
Judith, we're going to take a brief break. My guest is Dr. Judith Reisman. The book is Sexual Sabotage, How One Mad Scientist Unleashed a Plague of Contagion and Corruption on America. We'll be right back.